Odenda lived a very quiet life in Kasimba. He kept to himself and did not speak much. His small rented house stood at the very end of Lupita Lane, far from the noise, close to the muddy path that led to the river. Every morning, he walked to the town square carrying a small tool bag, fixing whatever people brought to him. Some called him useful. Others called him invisible. The Masinda family, who lived right next door, had everything Odenda did not. A tall gate, shiny cars, and a house that smelled like expensive perfumes and polished floors. They never looked his way. Not once. When they passed by, they would stare at their phones or pretend to be too busy to notice him. They saw him as nobody. A background figure. Someone beneath their attention. Someone unimportant. But Odenda had a secret. He listened. He watched. And he worked harder than any of them could imagine. Every night, he studied old blueprints, learned new skills, and drew designs for machines no one had ever seen before. His tiny room was full of sketches, wires, and small inventions he put together using spare parts. To him, the world was full of things waiting to be fixed, including himself. One day, everything changed. A fire broke out in the Masinda house while they were away. By the time they returned, everyone stood helplessly outside, watching the flames climb the walls. People screamed. Water buckets were dropped. The fire roared louder. But Odenda didn't scream. He ran inside. Minutes passed. A thick cloud of smoke poured from the door. People feared the worst. Then Odenda emerged, coughing, carrying a small child in his arms, Masinda's youngest daughter, Nia. The crowd froze. The Masinda family stared at him in shock. He had gone in without hesitation. Without glory. No one had even asked him to. But he did not care about being thanked. He only cared about doing what was right. The story spread quickly, first across the neighborhood, then throughout Kasimba. The quiet handyman's son, the boy no one greeted, had saved a life. Suddenly, people were looking at him differently. Some whispered. Some nodded respectfully. Some finally said thank you. Odenda did not change his walk, his voice, or his simple home. But something else changed, who they thought he was. And deep down, he knew that being ignored was no longer his story. Odenda works as a mobile electrician, riding his old bicycle through Kasimba with a toolbox strapped to the back. People call him when their ceiling lights flicker, or the fan stops spinning in the middle of a hot afternoon. He never charges too much, and he always smiles politely, even when he is tired. Every day as he pedals home, he passes the Masinda house. He hears loud laughter echoing from behind their tall gates. The sound of music floats into the street, along with the smell of grilled meat and sweet drinks. Sometimes he sees colorful lights flashing during parties. Young people dance in the courtyard while expensive guests arrive in shiny cars. But no one ever invites him inside. Not once. They act like he is a shadow passing by. The Masindas have one thing they treasure more than their fancy furniture or golden clocks: their dog Lumi. Lumi is a fluffy brown and white dog with a silver name tag, and a collar that probably costs more than Odenda's rent. The whole family treats Lumi like royalty. Children cuddle her. Adults feed her juicy meat. They take her for walks, but she barks at anyone too close, especially Odenda. He always steps back when Lumi is around because he knows the Masindas don't want him near their beloved pet. But something strange happens one afternoon. Odenda is working at the edge of town when he hears a woman shouting from far behind him. He turns around to see Lumi running across the street, tail down, eyes wide. The leash is gone. The gate is open. The dog looks lost and confused. People step back in fear as Lumi runs past them. Cars honk. A boy tries to grab her, but she slips away. Without thinking, Odenda drops his tools and follows her. Through the market, past fruit stalls, into a narrow alley. He calls out to her softly. Lumi looks back, unsure. Then she runs again. Odenda doesn't stop. He keeps chasing until Lumi gets stuck between two broken walls. She whimpers, scared. Slowly, Odenda reaches out his hand, not with anger or fear, but kindness. Lumi hesitates, then finally lets him lift her into his arms. By the time he carries her back, a crowd is waiting outside the Masinda gate. The family is crying. They run to take Lumi, stunned that Odenda is the one who found her. They look at him differently, for the first time. Maybe the quiet electrician was more than they ever believed. One dry and windy afternoon, Odenda is fixing wires in his small yard. His fingers are busy, his mind focused on not getting shocked. Suddenly he pauses. There is a sharp smell in the air. Not the smell of burning plastic or wires. This one is stronger, darker. He turns around and sees smoke rising into the sky. His heart stops for a moment. It's not from his house. It's coming from across the yard. From the Macinda's home. Flames are climbing up the back wall like hungry monsters. The fire spreads fast because the wind pushes it forward. Windows crack. The roof begins to shake. Neighbors rush around, shouting, throwing water that does nothing against the fire. Someone yells for help. Someone else screams a name. Odenda drops his tools and runs toward the Macinda gate without thinking. As he gets closer, chaos fills the air. The Macinda family is outside, crying and in shock, but one voice cuts through the noise. Lumi is still inside. The words hit Odenda hard. Lumi, the dog he once chased through town, the dog who never trusted him, is trapped. The fire grows, but no one moves toward the house. People look scared. They shake their heads. Some back away. Even those with strength and courage hesitate. The heat is too intense. Odenda does not wait. He pulls his shirt over his mouth and dashes into the burning house. Smoke fills his eyes. Everything inside is covered in heat and panic. He calls out for Lumi. At first, all he hears is the crackling of wood and breaking glass, then a soft sound. A whimper. Lumi is hiding under a table, shaking, her fur covered in dust. Odenda drops to his knees and reaches for her. She looks at him, afraid but desperate. He grabs her gently and carries her close to his chest. Stumbling through the smoke, Odenda searches for the exit. His lungs burn. His eyes water. He almost falls twice, but he keeps moving. Outside, the crowd watches in silence, praying, hoping, fearing the worst. Then the door bursts open. Odenda appears, coughing, holding Lumi tightly. The crowd erupts. The Macindas run over, tears streaming down their faces. Lumi, covered in ash, licks Odenda's chin. For the first time they look at him with respect, not as the handyman's son, but as a hero. The fire spreads fast, and the air becomes thick with smoke. Red and orange flames crawl over the roof like they are alive, hungry, and growing stronger by the second. The neighbors who first rushed to help, now step back in fear. They watch the house burn, feeling helpless. Some whisper prayers, others shout for water, but no one dares go near the door. The heat is too strong. The danger too real. Then, from inside the house, a sound breaks through the crackling fire. Lumi's terrified bark. It cuts through the chaos like a cry for help. Odenda freezes for a second, heart pounding in his chest. All the memories of being ignored by the Macindas flash through his mind. All the mornings they passed him without a word. All the nights he heard them partying behind locked gates. But his feet don't stop. His heart doesn't turn away. The moment he hears Lumi again, there is no more thinking. Only action. He runs toward the burning house with everything inside him screaming move. Neighbors shout that it's too dangerous, that he will die. But he doesn't listen. His hands shake not from fear but determination. He reaches the door. It's jammed, locked, covered in heat. Without waiting, Odenda lifts his leg and kicks it as hard as he can. The wood cracks. He kicks again. And again. One final strike, and the door bursts open. Smoke swallows him as he steps inside. He coughs. His eyes sting. The hallway is burning on both sides. Furniture is melting. Walls are collapsing. Lumi's barking echoes from somewhere deeper in the house, desperate and weak. Odenda moves toward the sound, pushing through the smoke, crawling on his knees when he has to. He sees Lumi under a broken table, shaking, trapped, eyes filled with terror. Odenda wipes his face and crawls closer. "It's okay," he whispers, voice rough from the smoke. Lumi hesitates but then jumps into his arms. He holds her tight, shielding her from falling debris. He turns back the way he came, stumbling as flames close in from every direction. Each step feels like fire is burning through his skin. But he doesn't stop. Finally, the crowd outside sees him appear, carrying Lumi, coughing, covered in soot, but alive. In that moment, the neighbors gasp, the Macindas cry, and everyone sees Odenda differently. Not as invisible, not as forgotten, but as the brave man who ran into fire for someone who never saw him. Amid thick smoke and falling wooden beams, Odenda pushes deeper into the burning house. Heat wraps around him like a heavy blanket, almost too much to bear, but he keeps moving. The fire roars like a monster, crashing through the roof and swallowing everything in its path. He reaches the kitchen, eyes watering, lungs aching, and that's when he sees Lumi, trapped under a broken chair. The dog's fur is blackened with ash, and its eyes are full of fear. Lumi is whimpering, unable to escape. Odenda doesn't waste a second. He rushes to Lumi and lifts the broken chair off her with all the strength he has left. The dog trembles, but Odenda gently scoops her up. His shirt is already soaked with sweat and smoke, but he quickly pulls it off and wraps Lumi in it to protect her from the flames. The heat grows stronger. The fire cracks louder. The air is so thick now he can barely breathe. Suddenly, a terrifying sound rumbles from behind. The gas tank in the kitchen explodes. Flames shoot up the walls. The floor shakes violently. Odenda shields Lumi with his body as debris rains down. People outside scream, believing no one could possibly survive such an explosion. But through the fiery chaos, Odenda refuses to stop. He coughs, stumbles, but keeps going, one step, then another. Outside, a crowd has gathered, watching with wide eyes and pounding hearts. They are waiting, praying, whispering. For a moment, all is silent except for the fire, eating the house alive. Then, a shadow appears at the front door. Odenda leans against the wall, carrying the small bundle wrapped in his shirt. His face is covered in soot. His breath is weak, but he is standing. Neighbors gasp as he emerges. Children start crying. Some cover their mouths in disbelief. The once forgotten handyman, the quiet boy no one ever greeted, is now the one walking through smoke carrying the Macinda's most precious companion. Lumi lifts her head from the shirt, tired but safe. The Macindas rush toward them, stunned, emotional, and speechless. They reach out for Lumi, but their eyes stay fixed on Odenda, unable to believe what they are witnessing. He saved her when no one else could. He risked everything without a promise of thanks. That moment, right there, changes everything for everyone watching. The silent boy from Lupita Lane has become a hero in front of their eyes. For the first time ever, the Macindas walk toward Odenda without looking away, without rushing past him, without ignoring his presence. Their fine clothes are covered in ash, and tears stream down their faces. They look small now, humbled, shaken by what just happened. Mr. Macinda reaches out, placing a trembling hand on Odenda's shoulder. His voice cracks as he tries to speak. "Thank you," he whispers. His wife sobs quietly, holding Lumi close to her chest like a child. They ask again and again how they can ever repay him. But Odenda shakes his head lightly. His eyes look tired but kind. He didn't do it for anything in return. He just did what felt right. The neighbors who used to see him as invisible now crowd around, staring at him like they're seeing him for the first time. They ask his name, like they've never heard it before. They want to know where he lives, what he likes, if he needs anything. Children cling to their parents' hands, whispering the word hero like it's magic. It's almost too much for Odenda. He never chased attention. He never stood in front of a crowd. But suddenly, his quiet heart is the center of everything. People who never said hello are offering him food, money, even a place to sleep. But Odenda doesn't speak much. He just wipes the sweat from his forehead and tries to smile, even though his body is weak and covered with scratches. Someone brings him water. Someone else offers a jacket. Even the elders step forward to praise him. In that moment, every wall built around him by silence and ignorance falls apart. The Macindas begin to talk more openly, not like rich people talking to a worker, but like human beings speaking from their hearts. They offer to pay for anything he needs, a better house, a job in their business, anything at all. But Odenda simply says he wants everyone safe, and that is enough. The silence between them disappears. Respect finally fills the air where there used to be emptiness. The boy they once called nobody now stands among them like a giant. And for the first time in his life, people say his name with love. Odenda. The one who ran into fire when no one else would. Odenda becomes the center of attention in Kasimba. His name spreads faster than the fire he ran into. People start talking about him everywhere. In the market, on the streets, at the water pumps. Soon, reporters come to town just to meet him. The local newspaper prints his picture on the front page, calling him the brave heart of Lupita Lane. Radio hosts talk about the young electrician who risked his life for a dog he barely knew. Even the town's council members show up at his small workshop, squeezing into the tiny shed surrounded by wires and old tools. They ask him questions like he's a celebrity. They offer him certificates, medals, and even a small trophy. Odenda looks shy, standing next to his tool bag with his shirt still stained from the fire. Cameras flash. People cheer outside. Someone even suggests naming a street after him. But Odenda doesn't seem to care about the fame. When asked how he feels, he simply shrugs and says in his calm voice, "No one deserves to be left behind." His words spread even faster than his story. People write them on posters. They repeat them at schools and community meetings. Teachers tell their students about the quiet electrician who didn't wait for someone else to act. Odenda becomes more than a news story. He becomes a lesson. A reminder that kindness still exists, even in silence. Meanwhile, more people start coming to his workshop, not just to fix their fans and lights, but to meet the man with the brave heart. Mothers bring their sons to shake his hand. Old men talk to him with respect. Some even offer to help upgrade his shop. But Odenda keeps working the same way he always has, careful, focused, humble. One day, someone asks him why he risked his life for a dog, especially when the family never treated him well. Odenda looks up, wipes his hands, and smiles. "It wasn't about who they were. It was about who I was," he says quietly. And that simple answer makes people love him even more. In a town where people used to ignore him, Odenda is now their example of courage. A small act of love took him from the shadows into every heart in Kasimba. And he didn't change his clothes or voice, just the way they saw him. Ashamed and moved, the Masindas come to Odenda's small house one evening with a warm invitation. They ask him to join them for dinner, and for the first time, they speak to him not as a stranger or a boy from the street, but as an equal. Odenda hesitates for a moment, looking at his worn shoes and simple clothes, but he nods and follows them. The air is thick with the smell of roasted meat and spices, a smell he had only admired from a distance before. As they sit at the table, Mr. Karambi, the father, looks Odenda directly in the eyes. His voice is quiet but steady. "We judged you without knowing you," he says, his tone heavy with regret. Odenda listens, his hands folded on his lap. He doesn't speak immediately, but the calm in his eyes tells them he understands more than they expect. Mrs. Karambi, his mother, reaches out and touches his arm gently. Tears shine in her eyes as she confesses, "We thought you were too simple to matter. We were wrong." Her words hang in the air. And for a moment, the room is silent except for the faint clinking of silverware. Odenda's silence is not emptiness. It speaks louder than words ever could. It says he has forgiven, that he does not hold anger, that courage and kindness are stronger than judgment. The Masindas watch him carefully, realizing the boy they ignored all these years carries a heart larger than they ever imagined. Lumi sits beside them, wagging her tail, and even the dog seems to sense the shift in energy. Odenda smiles faintly, finally breaking the tension. And his smile feels like sunlight in a room that had long been shadowed by pride and assumptions. They talk throughout the evening, sharing stories and laughter, as if the walls themselves are absorbing a lesson they had never learned before. Odenda's calm presence transforms the dinner. The Masindas see him not for his background, not for his clothes, not for his quiet life, but for the bravery and goodness he carried into the fire, into their hearts and into the town. By the end of the night, something changes for everyone. The family that once overlooked him now respects him, values him, and even looks to him for guidance in ways they never thought possible. Odenda may not have sought recognition, but in that shared meal, his courage and patience rewrite the story of who he is, a hero, a teacher, and a reminder that even the simplest life can hold the greatest strength. Instead of listening to more apologies, Odenda looks at the Masindas calmly and says something no one expected. "Help fix the broken streetlights in Lupita Lane," he tells them. "Children walk home in darkness. They need light, not stories of regret." His voice is gentle but firm, and everyone feels the weight of his words. It isn't about pride or recognition. It's about the people who are ignored every day, the children who stumble on uneven roads, the families who worry at night, the neighborhood that feels forgotten. The Masindas blink, surprised at first, but then they nod. Without hesitation, they agree to fund the project. Money isn't the reason, Odenda asked. He didn't want gifts or rewards. But the family understands that this is bigger than them. It's about the town, about changing what everyone had accepted as normal. Engineers and electricians are hired, poles are repaired, and new lights are installed. The old, flickering lamps are replaced with bright, steady bulbs that stretch down the lane like a ribbon of safety. The transformation doesn't stop with the Macindas. Inspired by Odinda's courage and humility, neighbors who once ignored him begin to help. People bring ladders, wires, and tools. Some bake food for the workers. Children cheer every time a light turns on. Even the elders, who had long claimed the lane was too far gone to care about, come to watch, impressed by the teamwork. It becomes a community effort. Every hand counts. Every small contribution matters. By the time the work is finished, Lupita Lane glows warmly in the evening. Families no longer rush through darkness, tripping over stones or dodging puddles. Children laugh as they walk home safely, holding hands. The neighbors share stories about the boy who asked for light instead of thanks, the young electrician who reminded them that good can happen when pride is set aside. Odinda watches quietly from his corner, a small smile on his face. He doesn't need applause. Seeing the safe, bright street is reward enough. Word spreads quickly. Other parts of Kasimba begin asking for help. People remember that one act of bravery and humility can inspire change beyond expectation. Odinda's name is whispered with respect, admiration, and gratitude, not because of fame, but because he used his courage to lift everyone around him. Lupita Lane is no longer just a quiet path. It becomes a symbol of hope, a reminder that even the simplest act, done with care, can light up a whole community. Lumi now visits Odinda every single day. The little dog runs up to him, tail wagging so fast it's almost a blur. Odinda kneels down and scratches behind her ears, smiling softly. She licks his hands in thanks, jumping up as if to say, "You saved me, and I never forgot." People walking by stop to watch, amazed at the bond between the quiet electrician and the once spoiled dog. It's a scene that feels warm, like the sun shining after a long storm. The Macindas have changed too. When they see Odinda outside his tiny house, they wave, sometimes even leaving gifts of food or small tools for his workshop. They smile at him genuinely, no longer distant or proud, no longer judging him for being just a handyman's son. Their words are kind now, full of respect, and the tone in their voices shows they've learned something important. Nia, the little girl Odinda saved Lumi for, often runs to him, chatting excitedly about school and games. Odinda listens, patient and gentle, happy to share these moments without expecting anything in return. The rest of Kasimba begins to notice the change. Neighbors who once ignored him nod in greeting when they pass by. Children wave as he rides his bicycle through the streets. The story of what Odinda did, running into a burning house, saving Lumi, asking for light for Lupita Lane, spreads farther every day. People repeat the saying in hushed admiration. Those who ignore you today may one day owe you everything. It's no longer just words. It becomes a lesson for everyone in town. Pride and judgment are seen as small when compared to courage, kindness, and selflessness. Odinda continues his simple life, fixing fans, dim lights, and other small problems in the town. But now, his days are filled with laughter, greetings, and warmth from people who finally understand him. He doesn't chase attention. He doesn't boast. He just goes about his work, quietly making life easier for those around him. Yet everywhere he goes, people remember his bravery and humility, and they respect him for it. Even in the evenings, when the sky turns gold and children walk home under the bright streetlights he helped install, Lumi stays close. She curls up near his feet as he works on his tools, a living reminder of what courage, kindness, and selflessness can bring. The town feels lighter, brighter, and safer, and Odinda's name is quietly celebrated by everyone who sees that true heroism doesn't need to shout. It simply acts. Wow. Can you believe how brave Odinda was? Just a simple young man, but he showed everyone what real courage looks like. If this story gave you chills or made you smile, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you won't miss the next incredible African folktale. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next.